You can sit down now, Claire. My mother's voice sliced through the tension like a hot knife. Her lips curled into that familiar cold smile, the one that always made my stomach knot as a kid. Everyone else was already seated around the gleaming mahogany table in the law office. My father tapped his gold watch impatiently while my brother Brandon smirked, arms stretched behind his head like he was lounging at a resort. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I was the last to arrive. No one had saved me a chair. That's fine, I said tightly, pulling up one from the wall and sitting at the edge of the room like a stranger. The room smelled of leather, old money, and betrayal. Mr. Gentry, the family's longtime estate attorney, adjusted his glasses and opened the thick folder in front of him. Thank you all for coming. This is the official will reading of the late Mr. George Langston, as per his final wishes. My grandfather, the only man in this family who'd ever shown me an ounce of respect. As Gentry began reading, it became obvious how the cards were stacked. My brother was listed first, then again, and again. The ranch in Montana, the vintage car collection, the Florida house, the trust fund, the investment portfolio. One by one, Brandon's name was repeated like some sacred chant, then silence, then my name. To my granddaughter Claire, I leave. I held my breath. My old photo albums and the books in my den. That was it. No land, no money, no explanation. Brandon let out a snort. Wow, that's touching. My mother didn't even look my way. My father leaned back, satisfied. He always said Claire didn't have the stomach for family matters. She was never one of us. I should have crumbled. Years ago, I might have. Instead, I stood up slowly, tucked my chair back in, and looked at the lawyer. I'd like to ask a question, Mr. Gentry, Brandon groaned. Claire, just sit down. Don't start one of your little scenes. Mr. Gentry blinked. Go ahead. I didn't speak. Instead, I looked over at my husband, Ethan, calm, composed. He reached into his blazer, pulled out a sleek leather wallet, and slid an ID across the polished surface of the table. It stopped in front of Mr. Gentry. The lawyer picked it up casually. Then he froze. His brows pulled together as he read the name on the badge. Then again, and again. The color drained from his face. My brother leaned over. What is it? Some secret shopping club? Ethan finally spoke, his voice measured and low. Number, it's a federal identification. I work with the Department of Justice, Financial Crimes Division. The room went silent. My father's expression flickered. My mother's fingers twitched, slightly on her lap. I have here a series of sealed documents and evidence, Ethan continued, tapping his briefcase gently, relating to the financial misappropriation committed by Brandon Langston and, potentially, others in this room. Wire fraud, asset manipulation, misuse of elderly funds. I felt my heartbeat slow. I wasn't panicked. I'd known this moment was coming. I'd spent months preparing for it. The table, once filled with smug smiles, was now stiff with tension. Is this some kind of joke? My mother hissed. Ethan met her eyes directly. You think it's a joke? Then I assume you're okay with us opening these files right here and now in front of everyone. Mr. Gentry swallowed hard. Claire, why didn't you say anything before? Because, I said calmly, I wanted to give everyone one final chance to show me who they really were. Brandon's jaw clenched. You married a Fed? No, I said, stepping forward. I married a man who actually respects justice, who understands worth isn't just measured in land and gold. You set us up, my father whispered. You little... No. Ethan interrupted. She didn't. You did. Years ago. When you used Claire's name on those offshore accounts. When you made her a scapegoat for your tax filings. You thought she'd never figure it out, that she'd just keep quiet. Gentry slowly closed the will. I think this meeting needs to be paused. No, I said sharply. We're not done. And as every eye turned back to me, I finally let go of everything I'd been holding in for years. You always made me feel small, I said, voice steady but heavy with every scar they left behind. You said I was too emotional, too soft, that I didn't have what it takes to be part of the Langston legacy. You made me believe I was nothing. My mother rolled her eyes. Oh, please, Claire, you're just bitter because we didn't coddle you. You didn't raise me. You dismissed me, I snapped, my voice rising. You only ever saw me as a liability. And Grandpa? He saw through it all. He just didn't say it out loud, because even he knew how deep the rot in this family went. Brandon scoffed. You're just upset because you didn't get the ranch. That's all this is. You were never into the business anyway. You were always off in your little books and college fantasies. I didn't want the ranch, I said. I wanted the truth, but you didn't just keep it from me. You used me. I turned to Gentry, who still hadn't said a word since Ethan revealed the ID. Mr. Gentry, how long have you been handling the family finances? He cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Close to 25 years. And were you aware, Ethan jumped in, that 3 years ago, Brandon filed several transactions under Claire's name? Large ones, offshore wire transfers, a Cayman account? I didn't see those transactions, Gentry stammered. Exactly, Ethan said, because they were hidden. Your firm handled the will, not the active accounts, and her parents let it happen. They knew. They let Brandon do it, all while making Claire the legal fall guy. My mother's jaw tightened. You can't prove any of this. Yes, we can, Ethan said, sliding another folder across the table. These are authenticated records, and they're already with the DOJ's white-collar division. Today's just a courtesy. We came here to give you a chance to explain yourselves before the arrests begin. There was a long silence. You could hear the tension crawling up the walls. I never signed anything, I said, looking directly at my father, but my name is on those documents. My social security number, my forged signature. You said I was a disappointment, but I was just your scapegoat. Brandon slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. Claire, you've always been jealous of me. You hated that I was chosen, that I was the one Dad trusted. No, I hated that you used me, that you smiled in my face while stealing my name and my future. I looked at my father, then my mother, and you let him. You were so quick to push me out of everything. The family events, the business meetings, even Grandpa's hospital room. I had to find out he died through a neighbor. You didn't even call. My father finally spoke, voice low and shaking. You were never meant to be part of this. You were always different, sensitive, weak. I stepped forward slowly, planting my hands firmly on the table. I wasn't weak. I was honest. I was kind. And you mistook my silence for stupidity. That's where you messed up. Gentry tried to interject, clearly desperate to regain control. Maybe we should reconvene at a later date. No, Ethan said, calmly but firmly. Now is the time. He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. A recorded voice came through the speaker. Brandon Langston authorized the transfer under Claire's name. I asked if she had signed the consent form, and he told me not to worry about it. It was a banker's voice, dated, time-stamped. I have more, Ethan said, pocketing the phone. Enough to open a federal investigation. Enough to get search warrants. Brandon looked pale now. My mother had stopped blinking. I just wanted to be free from this mess, I said quietly. From a family that only values money, control, and appearances. I married Ethan, not because he's a federal agent, but because he's the only person who ever made me feel safe. He believed me when I told him something felt off. He helped me uncover the truth, piece by piece. I looked back at Gentry. I don't care about the will. Keep the photo albums, keep the books, but I want the legal right to clear my name. I want everything Brandon stole under my name reversed. I want the truth on record. And if they don't cooperate, Ethan said, charges will be filed, multiple, across jurisdictions. The only thing saving any of you right now is this conversation happening before the warrants are signed. My father stood. We need time. You had years, I said, locking eyes with him. You just never thought I'd fight back. Mr. Gentry cleared his throat and carefully slid the badge back to Ethan. This will change everything. Yes, Ethan said. It already has. Brandon leaned forward, sweat glistening on his forehead. You wouldn't really press charges, Claire. Come on, we're family. No, I said, cold and clear. We're blood. That's not the same thing. I turned and walked toward the door, Ethan following. But just before we stepped out, I paused and looked back over my shoulder. One last thing, I said. You all laughed when I stood up. You mocked me for showing up at all. But you should have known. I only stand when I have something to say. And I came here today with proof, power, and purpose. Enjoy your inheritance. You'll be needing lawyers soon. And with that, I walked out, head held high. For the first time, they were the ones left speechless. The heavy door shut behind us with a loud click, but the silence from inside still echoed in my ears. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the outsider. I felt powerful. Ethan placed a gentle hand on my lower back as we walked down the corridor of the law firm. You okay? I stopped in the middle of the hallway and exhaled deeply, my hands shaking. I didn't think I'd feel this empty. You were holding that in for a long time, he said. Anyone would. I turned to face him. Do you think they'll fight back? Try to twist it? Oh, absolutely. Your parents didn't build their reputation on honesty. And Brandon? Ethan gave a bitter chuckle. He'll squirm like hell. That's what scared me. People like my brother don't accept defeat. They destroy whoever tries to expose them. And I had just lit a match inside a room filled with gasoline. By the time we reached the parking lot, my phone was already blowing up. First came a message from my father. Let's talk, privately. Then my mother. You've embarrassed us enough. Come to the house before this gets worse. And then, Brandon. What the hell did you do? I'm not going down for this. Fix it, Claire. I didn't reply. Ethan took the phone from me, turned it off, and slid it into the glove box. You don't owe them a single second more of your peace. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But part of me still ached. Not for their approval, I had buried that craving years ago, but for the loss of what could have been, what family was supposed to be. Later that night, Ethan and I sat in our small kitchen, drinking lukewarm coffee, trying to pretend this was just another evening, but it wasn't. The storm had only just begun. I spoke to my supervisor, Ethan said, scanning his laptop screen. They're moving fast. The DOJ has already flagged Brandon's offshore accounts. They're going to freeze them within 48 hours. And my name? I asked. Already being cleared. You'll be removed as a signer on everything within the week. Your credit will be restored, and the IRS will be notified that those past anomalies weren't your doing. It felt surreal. For years, I'd been denied loans, flagged for inconsistencies, denied credit cards, all because my brother had built a paper trail under my name, and I hadn't even known. I thought it was just bad luck or incompetence, but it was betrayal. Ethan closed the laptop and looked at me. They'll try to spin this. Your parents will say it was all a misunderstanding, that Brandon was young, reckless. They've always protected him, I muttered. Even when he cheated in school, or crashed Dad's car, or failed out of business college, they just cleaned it up and blamed someone else. You, I nodded. Always me. Ethan leaned forward. You don't need their apology. You already have the truth. Now you get your name back, your future back. But what if that's not enough? I whispered. He tilted his head. Then we go all the way. We don't stop until the people who hurt you answer for it. The next morning, the media had already picked up the story. Not the full version, just the beginning of the unraveling. Langston Eyre, accused of financial fraud, federal investigation. Underway, I stared at the headline on my phone, coffee in hand, pulse steady. For the first time, he was the one under the microscope. And yet, I wasn't ready for what came next. Around 11:17 a.m., the doorbell rang. Ethan was on a work call, so I answered it. And there they were, my parents, standing on my porch like ghosts from a life I no longer claimed. My mother wore her pearls and blazer like armor. My father's hands were stuffed in his pockets, but his eyes darted with unease. I didn't invite them in. We just want to talk, my mother said. Then talk, right here. My father cleared his throat. What you did yesterday was calculated, cold, no colder than what you did to me, I replied. You've embarrassed this family, my mother snapped. Do you even understand what this will do to our name? Oh, I'm sorry, I said with mock concern. Did exposing the truth inconvenience your reputation? We raised you, my father said, voice strained. We gave you everything. You gave me silence, I shot back. You gave Brandon everything. The cars, the business, the protection. I got the leftover scraps of attention and a stack of forged documents that nearly ruined my life. My mother's face twisted. He was going through a rough time. He made a mistake. That mistake could have landed me in prison. Then let's fix this together, my father said quickly. Just stop the investigation. Tell Ethan to stand down. My stomach turned. You want me to protect him? We're your family, he said. You protect your own. I stared at them both. You didn't protect me. The door behind me opened, and Ethan stepped out, folding his arms. She's not going to drop anything, he said. And if you think intimidation or guilt is going to work, you clearly don't know her anymore. My father glared. Is this all part of your little plan? Marry into law enforcement and take us down? Ethan stepped closer. Number. But maybe if you hadn't tried to steal your daughter's life and identity, you wouldn't be standing here begging for mercy. My mother's voice cracked. Please, he'll go to prison? I looked at her, eyes hard. And I almost did. Alone, while you all laughed. So if prison's where he ends up, maybe that's justice. Without another word, I closed the door. This time, I didn't cry. I didn't second guess it. I just stood there, breathing, feeling every ounce of the weight they'd piled on me all these years fall away. One truth at a time. 3 weeks later, the headlines were everywhere. Langston financial empire crumbles after federal probe, arrests imminent, insider tip led to uncovering of fraud ring within prominent business, family. Brother framed sister to hide $4.6 million in illegal transfers. Every time I saw Brandon's mugshot on the news, my hands didn't shake. Not like they used to. I didn't feel pity. I didn't even feel joy. I just felt clean, like I'd finally washed off years of invisible dirt. And yet, the victory didn't feel like a celebration. It felt like release. He had been indicted on 6 counts of financial fraud and identity manipulation, with another 2 pending from across state lines. My parents were still being investigated as accessories. And Mr. Gentry? He'd been slapped with a formal ethics complaint for gross negligence. But they weren't what lingered in my mind. What lingered was the fact that none of them, not even once, had apologized. Not to me. Not for using my name. Not for setting me up. Instead, they issued cold statements to the press. Legal language, denials, excuses. All while their empire burned. The house was quiet that morning, sunlight slanting through the kitchen window as I flipped pancakes on the stove. Ethan was across the table reading case updates on his laptop, and for a moment, everything felt normal, safe. I've been thinking, I said. Ethan looked up. Dangerous words. I smiled faintly. I want to change my name. His brows lifted. Claire Langston is no more? She never really existed, I said. She was a placeholder, a version of me designed to survive that house. Ethan reached across the table, taking my hand. Then, who are you now? I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew I was no longer the girl who flinched at every family gathering, who avoided mirrors because she couldn't recognize her own strength, who let herself be erased by people who were supposed to love her. I want to start over. Completely, I said. New name, new direction. Maybe start that non-profit I always talked about. The one for financial abuse survivors. Ethan nodded. You'd be amazing at that. You think so? I know so. He squeezed my hand. And for once, I believed him without needing to second-guess myself. Later that week, the final hearing took place. Brandon was denied bail. The judge's words were sharp and final. You not only defrauded your own sister, but you weaponized her identity while she struggled to build a life independent of your family's control. That, Mr. Langston, is a crime of cruelty. My parents sat on the other side of the courtroom, stone-faced. I didn't look at them. I wasn't there for them. I was there for me, for every loan I was denied, for every time I was called a failure, for every family dinner where my opinions were met with silence while Brandon was toasted like royalty. When the court adjourned, I walked out alone. No cameras, no speeches. Just me, the sky, and air that felt freer than anything I'd ever breathed in my life. 2 months passed. I moved cities. Ethan transferred to a field office closer to our new place, a modest little home with overgrown ivy on the porch and creaky floorboards we promised never to fix. I set up a desk near the sunroom, where I wrote proposals for the foundation I was building, Clear Name Project, a resource center for victims of family-based fraud. I received dozens of emails weekly, stories from women and men just like me, people silenced, people gaslighted, people buried under the reputations of the families they were born into. Each time I read their messages, I felt purpose threading itself back into my bones. One day, I received a handwritten letter in the mail from Gentry. He didn't ask for forgiveness, but he told me that my grandfather had left an unfiled addendum to the will, a document tucked away in a drawer he forgot to submit, one that had bequeathed me a property, a small lake house in Vermont, something my grandfather had meant just for me. I stared at the letter for a long time, and then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because even after everything, even after all the lies, they couldn't destroy what my grandfather saw in me. Ethan found me sitting on the couch with the letter. "What is it?" I handed it to him. He read it and looked up. "You want to visit?" "No," I said, smiling. "I want to go there, to live. For a while, just us, just peace." 6 months later, we moved into the lake house. It wasn't grand. It needed fixing. The walls needed painting. The roof needed replacing, but it was ours. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to prove myself to anyone. I walked barefoot on the old wooden dock at dusk, watching the reflection of the sky ripple in the water, and I whispered, I made it. Not because I'd won, but because I'd survived. Because I'd stood up in a room full of people who tried to erase me and said, not this time. And when the world tried to push me down again, I had someone beside me who didn't just catch me. He handed me the sword to fight back. No, this story wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation, about finally taking back the life they tried to steal, and rewriting every line they once forced into my script.